That gave a tiny lift to my eye that works, even though I have some lines that go down past the corner of my eye. It works. Hello, today I'm going to show you some quick and easy ways to create an instant facelift with makeup. Whether you're born with downturned features or you're not looking quite as lifted and well rested as you did when you were younger, a few simple makeup tweaks can give a more lifted, vibrant look to the face. As we age, because we lose facial fat, collagen, and elasticity that was so abundant in our youth, our facial features can start to get a little downturned, start to sag, which can almost make us look tired, and things just don't look as lifted as they did when we were younger. It doesn't matter if you're a makeup minimalist or a glam girl, you can implement all of these tips or some of them, whatever you're comfortable with and whatever suits your particular face. I'll be showing you the lifted, enhanced look on one half of my face and then the regular look that you may be doing on the other half. It's not going to be an exaggerated bad look, but a very realistic look that a lot of people still do that maybe haven't adjusted their makeup routine as their facial features have started to change with age. And you'll see the difference from one side to another. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new, and let's go ahead and get into this makeup facelift look. I'm going to go ahead and state the obvious. My face is very asymmetrical, so keep that in mind as we go through this video. Everything's not going to be 100% even because my face isn't even. Most people's faces are asymmetrical like mine. So the very first thing that I do when I sit down at my makeup table is put on a lip plumping lip gloss because our lips lose collagen and they get less plump the older we get. And when I put it on at the beginning of my makeup routine, it has time to kind of settle in, nourish, and plump my lips while I'm doing my makeup so that when I go in and do my lips at the end, some of those lip lines are filled out a little bit and they're just a little bit more plump than they would be normally. This one is from City Lips. It's my favorite, and I'll list this and every product I'm using in today's video in the drop-down description box below the video. If you click the title or the word more that's in the short little paragraph blurb, you'll get the full description box drop down. Now it's up to you when you do your brows. I've been doing mine before I do foundation and then just touching them up after because I feel like it just looks more natural and less harsh. Harsh brows can be very aging, so that's why I do it this way. So I think I'm gonna have this be my good side and this be my bad side, for lack of a better term. So as you can see, I have very sparse, uneven brows. It's just happened as I've gotten older. So on the bad side, I'm gonna do what a lot of people do, and they typically go into the front side of their brow first. And I am using the same pencil on both sides. Like I said, I'm not going to make this be a bad look on this side, just, you know, kind of a normal everyday look that someone might do. So typically they might go in and just kind of do the front, kind of square it off, pencil in what needs to be penciled in. Now the tail of my brow is pretty much gone, but I do know where it typically grows, and that's usually where people draw their brow, is how their tail typically grows. So I'm gonna do that, and mine actually might grow a little bit further down, and I'll just, you know, do an arch as you normally would. So there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It looks technically okay. And keep in mind, I'm not perfect with my brows on a daily basis anyway. What works for me a little better anyway is starting with the middle, the tail of the brow, and keeping that angle high. What you want is to keep this angle in mind and extending the tail of this brow outwards just a hair instead of down is going to help with that. And we're still going to fill in any gaps that we have, and I have a lot. And now I'm going to come to the front of the brow and fill this in a little more lightly, and just make sure you're going with your natural brow shape, whether it's squared off or slanted a little bit so that it looks like natural brow strokes. And my brows are never perfect. They're never even anyway. Now, I like to go with a little bit less of an arch. I feel like that's a little bit more youthful, and I feel like you can kind of see this eye-opening angle here where the brow, instead of going down, it's extending outwards a little bit more than this brow over here, which has that curve. And even though it's a subtle difference, it's a little bit of a difference that can make a big difference with the end result. I'm going to go ahead and put my under eye corrector, Bobbi Brown stick corrector in the shade Bisque underneath this eye over here, just where I have discoloration. A lot of people leave out this inner corner and we have a lot of darkness there, especially as our skin gets thinner. And this is something I see a lot of people not doing as they get older because they've never used concealer before, but our skin gets thinner underneath our eyes. And it's something you may not even notice because it happens so gradually as we get older, but you get a a little darker in the inner corner. A lot of us get redness right here in the outer corner, and that discoloration just becomes more pronounced, and it's kind of hard to see with these lights that are allowing you to see what I'm doing. But when I look down, I think you can see it a little bit better. There's more of a dark shadow here than here where I put the corrector. You can do corrector after you do foundation. I kind of like to do it before. I'm going to go through the foundation step pretty quickly because that's not really part of the lifting technique. It's more about how our skin looks. We want our skin to look plump and youthful and healthy. There's a misconception though that everyone with maturing skin has dry skin, and that's just not the case. My skin, for example, is more normal and can be dry around the perimeter, but the middle can get oily and shiny. I have combination oily skin and I'm almost 47 and it doesn't seem to be changing at all. So even though I don't want to get oily and shiny in my T-zone, I don't want my face to look flat either. I'm going to be using Urban Decay Stay Naked Hydromaniac. This is one of my favorite everyday glowy but not too glowy foundations that actually stays on. And I'm also going to be strategically placing Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter where I want a little more glow. If you have dry skin, you can apply this all over as a primer or just mix it in. I mean, you can do that if you have oily combination skin too. It's all about what you want. So if you're curious how I like to apply this, I usually apply it right here, down the nose, a little bit above the brow, and just a smidge above the lip and some on the chin. And that's pretty much all I do before applying foundation. And I like to do that because it kind of peeks through and shows a little bit of glow. Right after I apply my foundation, we'll get into some more lifting techniques. For my under eye concealer, I'm using the NYX Bear With Me on both sides, but on the don't side, I'm using the shade Beige, which is very close to my face skin tone. I'm just dotting this under my eye and I'm going to blend it out with a brush. I feel like I need to turn my brightness down. Now on the lift side, I've mixed shades Beige and Light on the back of my hand because that is what is about a half a shade lighter than my face shade. They just don't have a shade that fits that. That's why I have to mix. And I'm using the warmth of my fingers to strategically place this in the inner corner at the hollow of my tear trough and right at the outer corner. And I'm going to blend this out with my finger. And what I find really helps, because the skin is thinner, it's a little bit looser, is to gently pull a little bit so that it makes that area flat and you get all of the little crevices with the concealer, the little folds that you might not get otherwise. I'm kind of bringing it down along the sides of the nose so I don't get that reverse panda effect. And I'm getting the outer corner, but I'm also taking this beyond the eye, beyond the eyebrow, up into that temple area. I don't have quite enough product, so I'm just adding a little bit more. See how I'm taking it again? Remember that angle I used earlier with my brush? I'm still keeping that in mind with this concealer. You can't even see it, but there's a little bit of a lifting effect going on. And occasionally I'll feel a little bit dark right in that tear trough and I'll take another dot and just top that area off. Just right there, very localized to eliminate any shadows. Now you're getting some reflection in my lights. I'll show you what it looks like on my phone. You see how the don't side just looks like I have concealer under my eyes. It's kind of sitting on top because I used a brush, whereas the yes side, the lifted side, looks like it's melded into my skin since I used the warmth of my fingers, and it has slight uplifted effect that's undetectable, but it's there. Now this is completely optional. If you want to take a light shade of concealer, I am using just the shade Light, and apply it where you are sunken in. For a lot of us, it's right here at the nasolabial folds, and it'll just help give a slight lift. I'm also doing it at the lips. I like to apply it to the back of my hand and dip my brush in it as opposed to applying a streak on my face first. I just feel like it blends out better that way and it doesn't crease during the day. I find especially around the lip area where there's some little folds, sometimes if you do this, it gives a nice lifting effect, but then it can kind of crease if you apply too much product. These are optional effects that are all going to flow once we add product and color on top. Adding light helps lift and darkness helps recede, which just helps create those contours that have kind of disappeared as we've started to age. I just realized I did those optional highlighting do steps on the don't side. I was just going to town with it, so just ignore that. We'll just pretend like it's not there, but I mean, it's very undetectable. You can't really see it. Now, if you have some sagging in the jowl area, a lot of women have this. Contouring really quickly is going to help give the illusion impression that that's not there, or it's at least minimized, you can contour with powder after you've set your face. I'm going to show you with cream though, because I just find cream to be really effective for this area in particular. And I'm going to show you a couple of other areas on your face where it can help as well. So you want to just create your contour line right where that shadow is. Just right on the perimeter. Do you see where I created that shadow, which looks kind of weird before you blend it out? I'm actually not going to use this big of a brush. I do want to use a smaller brush, and then you're just going to blend it. And if you do have, you know, a double chin thing going on too, you can just blend that right under your chin and kind of right back here along your jaw area. You want it to be a very subtle effect. You want to be sure and just blend out those edges, use circular motions. You don't want to look like you have contour under your chin. You want it to look like a shadow, and you definitely want to use something that has a cooler tone to it, not a warm tone, so that it looks like a shadow. I'll list my favorite contour products down below, powders and creams. Okay, so here we go. We have a little bit of contouring here. Just a nice shadow effect. Helps with that jowl just a little bit, and we're just not going to do it over here. And again, you can do it with powder and not cream. And I'm just kind of showing you, if you want to do some contouring on your nose to slim your nose, you can also do that as well. If you contour your cheekbone too low, whether it's with cream or powder, it can really drag down your entire face. So on the don't side, I'm going to contour where a lot of people typically do, which is right in the hollow of the cheek, right underneath the cheekbone. And a lot of times they'll typically bring it, you know, about halfway. This is typical placement of contour for many people. Now that doesn't look terrible, but it can be improved. Instead of placing it where the hollow of our cheek is, we're going to go higher, about to the middle of the cheekbone, and just right there in the back. And I'm also going to use a smaller brush to blend this out. And when you're blending, you want to be sure and blend up. You don't want to blend down, because that's going to, again, drag the face down. My light's going in and out because we're getting some bad weather outside. And this angle is actually a little bit more horizontal than it is, I guess, a 45. So I feel like you can already see how using less product further back, placing it higher and at a more horizontal angle makes a difference. Now on both sides, I'm just pressing out any little creases I've gotten underneath my eyes as I've been applying my other makeup since I applied my concealer. Now I use a very, very sheer powder to set my under eye area always. You may be someone who does not have to set your under eye area, but I do, because I will crease as the day goes on. And as you just noticed, very quickly, just as I'm applying other makeup, I'm going to set my entire face with powder just the way I normally do, which is pressing it in with a sponge so that it fuses with my skin and looks very skin-like, versus dusting it on, because when you dust it on, it just kind of sits on there like a layer and it just doesn't set makeup as well. That's just a little tip if you haven't done it this way before. So I'm just tapping it in until it basically disappears, and then I'm just going to take the excess on a brush, swirl it in until it's absorbed into the brush, and then dust my face. And now my face is all set, and yet it doesn't look powdery. I'm going to go in with a bronzer that has a more neutral tone, so it can be used as bronzer but can also be used a little bit more densely as contour. There's very few of those that are out there, because usually bronzers are a little warmer in tone while contours are a little cooler. But Benefit Hoola, and there are now a few different depths of Benefit Hoola, I just have the original, can work for both, for my light, medium, neutral, warm skin tone. So a common mistake that I see with bronzer is being used as contour only and not really warming up the face, which does give a healthier look. So I'm going to do that right now. Just contour with it, again placing it basically where we placed it earlier. A lot of tutorials show using bronzer as contour and using it in this kind of 3 motion, and you can see here I am getting sunken in my temple area. A lot of us are, the older we get, and that is an area that you do not need to be adding bronzer or contour to, or if you do, it needs to be done very, very lightly. But you can see that just made me look even more sunken in. Okay, so on the good side, I'm going to give myself a nice warm look. I'm first going to take this where I would naturally get sun across my nose. It's kind of hard to do bronzer on half the face. Okay, so I'm just going to take this where I would normally get sun, so across the cheek, on half my chin. And if you find that that gave you a big contrast between your face and your neck when you did that, you may want to add some to your neck too. It's quick, it doesn't take any time. So now if I did want to contour with powder, I'm going to do this very lightly. I would dip a slimmer brush into the powder, tap it off. I take it around the perimeter of my forehead because I have a larger forehead. Some of you may not need to do this. Go over what I did earlier, just very lightly. Also go down the nose if you wanted. And most days when I'm in a hurry, if I'm doing any contour at all, I stick with powder. I don't even do the cream contour step because I just don't have time. But either way is fine. Let's just go ahead and finish the face part out before we get into the eyes and the lips. So I'm taking Revlon Apricot Cute. This is one of my favorite drugstore blushes. I'm going to place it in the typical spot on the don't side, which is typically the apple of the cheek. And most people do put their brush down first, right on the apple of the cheek, and then start blending. So I'm just going to do that. But again, I'm going to make this look realistic, not like it's one big don't. Okay, so we have a typical placement of where our contour is kind of blending into the blush that we just placed on the apple of our cheek. It doesn't look horrible. I can't remember where I heard this rule of thumb a long time ago, but it goes with the exact placement that I've been talking to you guys about for a long time, and it's a lot easier to explain it this way. But if you take your hand and you place it like this in an L, this is basically the perfect spot to place your blush. And because where you place your brush first is where it deposits the most pigment, you want to place it in the back first and start blending from there. But that's actually pretty high up, and it's probably higher than some of you would ever place your blush. It's pretty much right under the outer portion of your eye as well. Just changing your blush placement can give a dramatic lift to your face. You want to keep your face shape in mind as well. If you have a round or a wider face, you want to go a little bit more vertical, more on an angle. For people with more elongated faces like me, you want to keep it on a more horizontal plane. I'm going to be using Tartlet in Bloom for both the do and the don't side. For my transition shade on both sides, I'm using the shade Smarty Pants. On the don't side, I'm just going right in with it, which is what a lot of people do. It's quick, it's easy. The brush I just used was the Sigma E40. That's this larger brush here. The slightly smaller brush is the Sigma E38, which is what I'm going to use on my do eye to have a little bit more control. Now keep in mind on the do side, we're keeping this angle in mind the entire time. This lower lash line angle needs to just kind of continue on into infinity. This is going to give us our lift. So I'm not starting with my upper lash lid, I'm starting with my lower lash line, which is not something we typically see. I'm just pinching that brush and going along my lower lash line with this kind of mid-tone shade, but I want to have this as my guide. It's very easy to do, and this shadowy line isn't going to be permanent. It will blend out, but it gives us a starting point and a stopping point. So remember what I said earlier, where you place your brush first is where you get the most pigment, so we want to start with the outside and blend inwards. I'm starting with a windshield wiper motion and kind of alternating with circular motions and depositing that pigment from the crease almost up to the brow bone. But as you do these circular motions, you want to go a little bit lighter the closer you are to the brow bone. This is actually perfect for those of you with hooded eyes, with downturned eyes, deep set eyes as well. I am going to be using all mattes today on both eyes just to show you a comparative difference, and I know a lot of you like to use all mattes. So I'm going to use Flower Child on my lid on the don't side. And I'm applying Rebel in the crease. I'm basically just following the curve of my eye socket, which is something I see a lot of people do. I'm going to go ahead and apply Charmer to my brow bone and line this eye. You see how I covered a lot of the hood because our hoods are typically bigger the older we get. So just make a note of that as we look at the good eye here in a minute. So I'm just going to go in with a chocolate brown eyeliner on the top of my eye the way many of us do. I'm even going to smudge it. A lot of us are realizing the importance of smudging eyeliner as we get a little bit older. It just looks a little better. Like I said, I don't want this to be a complete don't. I'm hoping you can see what happened when I initially lined my eye. This isn't from the smudging. I haven't even smudged this part. Because I lined my lash line and didn't have a stopping point, that line continues when I open my eye below where my upper and lower lash lines meet. So it actually makes my eye look like it's curving downward even more. This is definitely not the effect that I personally want. Now, I know a lot of people are still lining their lower lash line. I'm getting my smudger brush handy. Now, what I'm seeing a lot of people that are wanting a lift do is lining their lower lash line Lining your lower lash line if you have downturned eyes. Lining your lower lash line if you have downturned eyes, or if you're, starting to age and things are starting to droop a little, can make things look more pulled down, heavier, more severe than you realize. I feel like that just took this to a don't right away. Okay, before we move on to mascara, let's go ahead and do this eye the right way. I'm going to take those same shades, Flower Child, Rebel, and Charmer. Yeah, Charmer, but I'm going to use them a little bit differently. So I'm going to take Flower Child on that same brush. This is a Refer number 21 brush, but I'm going to keep it on that inner corner only. I'm going to go ahead and take that light shade Charmer, and I'm going to highlight my brow bone just directly under the brow. I'm not taking it down any further. Do you see how that gave just a lovely, nice little highlight compared to the heaviness we have going on over here? I'm also going to lighten up this inner corner a little bit just to give a little bit more brightness beyond what the concealer is giving me. And before going in with Rebel, I'm going to line my eye, and there's a reason why I'm doing this. You'll see here in a second. I'm going to take the shade Smoke Show and use this as my liner with a dense angled brush. You can experiment and see whether you'd like to use shadow damp or dry. It lasts either way. I use shadow to line all the time. It's so much more user-friendly and quick than using a pencil most days. I have some exceptions to that I can show you in different videos. My brush is slightly damp right now. I'm just dipping it into Smoke Show and tapping off the excess. And I've showed you this in several of my Challenging Eye series videos. I'll have that playlist linked below. I'm extending this lower lash line and placing a little tick mark right there. This is something I do every time I line my eye, no matter what I'm lining with. And now I'm just going to close my eyes and kind of rub this kind of messily into my lash line. And yes, I am tight lining with this, and no, the shadow does not fall out into my eye during the day. I get asked that all the time. I know not all of you tight line, but a lot of you with hooded eyes do, because it helps create a thicker looking lash line. So I wanted to show you this, and already you can see the difference from one eye to another. What I'm doing right now is creating lift at this outer corner. The actual outer corner of my eye ends right here, but what I want to do is change that angle. I want to place it a little higher up, or give the illusion that it's placed higher up. So I'm going to extend that tick mark a little bit, darken it, and now I'm just going to build that line up a little bit more. That gave a tiny lift to my eye that works, even though I have some lines that go down past the corner of my eye. It works. But what you can also do is extend this a little bit more. If you're wanting more of a lift, and again, just keep building it up. It just depends on how much of a lift, how much of an extension you want. It is the easiest thing to do. You don't even need to go in with Rebel now. I mean, you have an eye look if you want to leave it there, but you can create more of a lift if you want to use a mid-tone brown at this point. But now you can keep it confined to above the eyeliner, and that's kind of why I like to go in with eyeliner first. And I'm really just kind of dabbing it on and smoking it out. Again, keeping that angle in mind the whole time, swooping it up and outwards. If you want to add a mid-tone brown on the middle of your lid, you can, or you can mix it with this Flower Child shade if you're just wanting something else kind of in the middle to blend it all out. Now, there's also an option for those of you who just don't want that eyeliner on the top at all. You can take that same Smoke Show shade and just smudge it out more on the top lash line. And that is also an extremely beautiful look. It's softer, a little more smudgy, even though the line we had earlier wasn't super sharp. If you're not curling your lashes, you need to start. It will give you such lift compared to just leaving your lashes straight. My lashes are pretty much invisible until I curl them and put mascara on. So I'm going to go ahead and curl my lashes so we can do some mascara. Now on the do side, I'm going to go ahead and just put a light coat of waterproof mascara to hold that curl so that my lashes won't straighten back out. If you're curling your lashes and then you apply mascara and they're just straightening right back out, start implementing that. It doesn't matter if it's just a super, super light coat. It can make a world of difference. So on the don't side, I'm going to go in with one of my favorite mascaras, Tarte Man Eater, but I'm going straight in, and my lashes more than likely will start to slowly straighten. I'm also gonna, do a really great job of getting that all over my cheekbone. Be sure to comb that out really good before you go in with your lash building, lengthening mascara, because you want your lashes to be as separated like individual lashes as they can possibly be. I like to use a wire lash comb. The Tweezerman is my perfect lash comb. Okay, I didn't anticipate how crazy this would look when I decided I wanted to go ahead and have this side of my lips lined. I'm gonna do the do side on camera so I can show you the precise technique, but I did go ahead and finish my mascara. My Tarte Man-Eater is on its last legs. It's actually pretty dry. I put a second coat on this eye, and my second coat of mascara on the do eye is actually Tarte Man-Eater. I always feel like for some reason this side of my face, you can always see the mascara more, but I also feel like you can see my lashes are a little bit more straightened out over here than they are over here. In my opinion anyway, the eye look on this eye is just more flattering, more lifted than on this eye. Now let's get to the lips. There's clearly nothing wrong with wearing deep shades. I wear them. I especially love wearing them in the fall. But when you have some heaviness, some dragging down going on with your eyes and with the rest of your face, it just makes for a heavier look. Now, I don't know how you are, but as I age, I noticed that the corners of my mouth are starting to not point as upward. And if I do the typical overlining technique as I did over here, where I just outline my natural lip shape all the way to the edge, it exaggerates that. I mean, even when I smile, the corner of my lip just doesn't go up the way I feel like it should. I'm trying to exaggerate that while I talk, but you can see it. There's no lift there. So we're gonna create that lift, and we're gonna use a more nude, flattering shade that's more our lip color. I also used kind of a creamy matte formula where you can see my lip lines. It's just not as flattering as it could be. So with this side, instead of starting right at the point of my Cupid's bow, the deepest part, I'm gonna take that a little bit higher, and I'm still gonna create the same curve. I don't personally like a pointed lip. I think on me anyway, that's a little aging. So I'm creating a very subtle curve here. I'm overlining at the top half of the lip. And do you see how I'm taking that curve and kind of just curving it into my lip? This is where I wanna go up from the bottom. I do wanna start from where my lips meet and not overline, and then I'm going to kind of meet the point where I overlined. I'm hoping when you see it, it'll make sense. So you also could have initially started from the bottom and gone up. I just personally like to do it this way because I like to create my curve first. And instead of just outlining the perimeter, I like to fill my lips in because it helps fill in some of those little lip lines, and it also helps your lip product adhere longer during the day. On the bottom lip, I am going to start at the corner and just get a little bit fuller towards the center of the lip. And do you see how it adds this little undetectable uplift? And I'm applying a very flattering, plumping lip formula to my lips that's going to be very flattering on any vertical lip lines. I don't know about you, but I see a big difference between the sides of my lips when I'm talking, smiling, and just sitting still. Even just implementing a few of these facelift makeup techniques can make some big changes to your overall makeup look. If you've been looking in the mirror lately and you just haven't really been loving what you've been seeing, but you haven't really known what to change, I hope this video helped you out a little bit. If it did, I would love it if you would give it a thumbs up so that more people could see it, share it with someone you think might enjoy it too, and subscribe if you're not already. I have an entire Challenging Eyes playlist. If you haven't seen those videos, or if you just want some refreshers, I'll have it linked here for you so you can check those out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!